Welcome back to Lesson 4, the growth potential of full maturity. If you've been following along, as you should have been, then you've done the hard foundational work. You've achieved level 1 discipline by unifying your data model. You've achieved level 2 clarity by knowing exactly what you're tracking and having universal alignment on those metrics. And most importantly, you've achieved level 3 predictability by mastering your secondary KPIs and knowing why your results are what they are. You've tamed the chaos of the left side of your revenue performance model, the acquisition funnel. Now, your GTM, your go-to-market operations are a clean, predictable engine up to this point. But here's the secret. Predictability is not the finish line. It's the starting line for exponential growth. A truly mature RevOps system moves beyond just level 3 predictability. It moves on to removing guesswork, identifying bottlenecks, and enforcing precise, measurable processes to the entirety of your revenue journey. It focuses on the metrics that matter, your revenue. For recurring revenue businesses, that holy grail metric is net revenue retention. And the entire point of maturity level 4 is to begin integrating those revenue metrics so that you can start seeing that net revenue retention. This is also the area where I've seen a lot of revenue operations teams struggle. Why is that? Because finance and operations often live in two entirely different worlds, speaking two totally different languages. Your revenue operations strategy has to become the translator and conductor of this here revenue orchestra. That's why your first critical step, again, is cross-team alignment. Remember, misalignment leads to meaningless metrics and an unstable foundation. And again, it will just breed mistrust. To begin, define clear financial triggers and definitions. Just as you define the triggers for MQLs and opportunities back in level 1, it is absolutely imperative that everyone knows exactly what defines the metrics of the recurring revenue cycle, or the usage-based revenue cycle, or your revenue cycle in general. You have to know exactly where the money changes hands and what should be measured for your business. Here's where things get murky if you don't absolutely nail that alignment. What's the difference between a cross-sell and an upgrade? If sales labels a new line item as an upgrade to hit a specific quota, but finance actually sees that as a cross-sell for revenue recognition purposes, then your calculation is immediately flawed and your internal reporting is going to be unreliable. Same thing. When is a contract change a downgrade versus a full churn? If a customer reduces their seat count but retains the service, that's typically a downgrade. But is that how it's being tracked? If they completely terminate a product line, that's typically a churn. But again, is that how your process is being tracked by sales? Is it how your finance team determines that? Clear documentation prevents ambiguity and ensures that finance is reporting the same numbers as the go-to-market team that you just worked so hard to define. You also have to align the go-to-market and finance systems. You must ensure that all processes and systems used between the teams are clearly defined and seamlessly integrated. They have to be in perfect lockstep. Because again, if they're not, then you risk the handoff from sales to customer success to finance losing data or that data being misconstrued. That handoff has to be monitored and reviewed just as carefully as the handoff from marketing to sales that we've talked about countless times throughout this course. There's a crucial reconciliation point here. The moment when a deal is booked or a contract is changed. When the customer signs, the financial impact should flow automatically and accurately. If it's not, it's just generating friction. Finally, you have to be using the right tools. You need to identify not only what those metrics are and how to measure them, but also where they will be measured. Is it a billing system? Does finance actually live inside the CRM, or do they have an accounting tool or an ERP? The important thing is for leadership to be able to easily access those metrics, trust in their absolute accuracy, and be able to pinpoint directly in them how to formulate growth strategies. Again, this is why having a single source of truth is imperative. Your systems need to talk to each other so that no matter whom is looking for the revenue data, they can find them. Level 4 is where you start using your revenue operations strategy to compound revenue. It's where you start turning your existing customers into your biggest, most efficient revenue source. Again, in terms of recurring revenue, net revenue retention is the holy grail. When you are bringing in those revenue metrics, you have to make sure that you're precisely defining and tracking exactly the components that you need to make the right side, the flywheel side of the revenue performance model, as detailed and insightful as the acquisition, the funnel side that we talked about just before this. Think about it like this. You're starting MRR or ARR, depending on how you're defining this, is the money that's already in the bank at the beginning of the month. Your job is to make sure that number goes up, not down. So we have to measure every single thing that impacts that bank account. We have to think about cross-sells. This is usually the type of revenue from an existing customer that's buying a different product category or service type. Is that what it means for you? It's usually defined as a new solution for a new problem. How do you define it? Second, we have upgrades. This is typically seen as an increase in a customer's recurring revenue journey for their current product or service. So basically, they just want more of what they already have. Is that how you define it? Third, we have downgrades. This is a decrease in the recurring revenue because a customer scaled back their usage. It is typically defined as a revenue leakage warning sign, a decrease or a step back. And then we have churn. This is the complete cessation of a customer's recurring revenue, a lost logo, a full stop. That's how that's typically defined. Again, is that how you define it? You'll notice a trend here. I'm keeping asking you because this is your KPI discovery documentation process for your revenue flywheel side. We did this as part of the KPI discovery document, the spreadsheet that you saw in the last lesson. It had these metrics on it. You do this with the same level of clarity, focus, and alignment that you did with the funnel side, the acquisition KPIs, the conversion and volume metrics we talked about in the last lesson. You need to go through and make sure that you are clearly aligned so that no matter whom you ask in your business, if you ask what a downgrade is, they can immediately tell you the exact definition and then know where it's tracked. When we're talking about that holy grail metric, that net revenue retention, the formula is elegantly simple. It's your starting recurring revenue plus your upgrades plus any cross sells minus downgrade minus churn. And that gives you an ending percentage. Your NRR percentage ideally would be 100%. You have the same amount from time period to time period, quarter over quarter. If your NRR percentage, for example, if we're using the example that's on the screen, it actually comes out to a 95%. That means you lost 5% of your existing customer revenue. Ideally, you're shooting for 100%, but obviously there's flexibility. What you would want here is to make sure that whatever you lose in your existing customer base, you're making up for with new business. So ideally, for exponential growth, you're maintaining that 100% and everything else is just gravy on top. The idea is that your expansion revenue is always significantly outpacing downgrades and churn. That's the definition of exponential growth. When you track all of these metrics, once you've gotten to level 4, when you start tracking all of these metrics, you reach level 5, total transparency, which is really powerful. This is the kind of data model that you would be able to see at the end of full maturity at level 5. You'll notice it looks similar to the data table we looked at in the last lesson, but this one has way more on it because this is now following all the revenue journey all the way from sessions through to close. Let's take a look at this data table and see what we can learn from it. For example, let's look at the fact that in quarters 1 and quarters 4, our NRR, our net revenue retention, is really healthy. It's 103% and 101% respectively. Why? Well, because if you look a little closer, In those same quarters, cross-sell was higher than it was in the other 2 quarters, which offset the inevitable churn. This leads to the direct insight in your strategy. Great. We had successful cross sell quarters in quarter 1 and 4. We need to repeat that strategy. Whatever we did, we need to dig into it, find out what it was, and see if we can do it again. If we look even further, let's dive into quarter 3. That's when our net revenue retention dropped to its lowest, to 96%. Why did that happen? Because churn was the highest of the year in that quarter. And unfortunately, upgrades were flat. So, what you could take away from that would be to analyze customer success data for any issues that could be underlying. Was there a spike in support tickets? Did a specific product line fail? What happened in that quarter that led to such a spike in churn? Total transparency is the ultimate end state for level 5 maturity. It's the complete integration of financial data in with your go-to-market data. It gives you the comprehensive view of the entirety of your revenue journey, from sessions all the way through to the ending net revenue retention breakdowns. Achieving level 5 means bringing your financial operations into perfect lockstep with your go-to-market teams. It means your finance teams see the same revenue story that your sales and marketing teams do. It's the complete lead to cash picture. It allows true profitability by linking marketing and sales spend directly to tangible, hard, detailed metrics. This is the ultimate prize, the ability to seamlessly reconcile your operational go-to-market KPIs with financial results, unlocking ultimate efficiency in all of your revenue metrics. And there you have it. That's operationalizing the second growth phase of the maturity framework, reaching level 4 and 5. Level 4 gives you the ability to begin defining and implementing those finance KPIs. And level 5 gives you total transparency in true lead to cash visibility, seamless reconciliation of operational KPIs with financial results, and complete control over your revenue operations strategy. I'll leave you on one thing. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither will your revenue operations strategy. You're not going to reach full maturity in the blink of an eye. What you have to do is walk through the foundation one step at a time, refining, optimizing, and improving every step as you go, creating a strong data foundation. Once you do that, you'll be able to unlock sustainable growth and recognize full revenue potential.